Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the Guptas and the post-Guptas. In the previous lecture, basically we have covered the Guptas and the post-Guptas part 1. Now in this lecture, we will cover the Guptas and the post-Guptas part 2. So basically in the previous lecture, we have discussed several aspects regarding the Guptas and the post-Guptas, like the introduction to them, like the early rulers, like the administration, like the economic growth and the trade networks that they had developed over the period of time. Now, basically, in this lecture of the Guptas and the post-Guptas, we are going to these topics that are listed over here. Like we will start from social and the cultural life of the Gupta Empire, in which we will discuss society, role of women, and the family life. After this, we will discuss the religion and philosophy, in which we will discuss dominant religion, religious sects, contribution to the Indian philosophy, literature and learning, and educational institutions. Thereafter, we will discuss the art and architecture of the Gupta Empire, in which we will discuss rock-cut temples, structural temples, sculpture and the iconography of Hindu deities, and the iconography of Buddhist deities. After this, we will see the cultural significance of the Gupta Empire. Then we will see the decline of Gupta Empire, in which we will discuss the causes of decline, internal conflicts, economic challenges. Thereafter, we will discuss the legacy of the Gupta Empire. In this, we will discuss influence on subsequent dynasties, cultural and intellectual achievements. Thereafter, we will discuss the mathematics in the Gupta Empire. In this, we will discuss the Indian numerals and zero. Thereafter, we will see the Aryabhat and its mathematical treatise in reference to the Gupta Empire. Thereafter, the algebraic contribution, the geometry and measurement, the astronomical calculations, these all were happened during the Gupta Empire. Okay. Below this, we will discuss the Harshvardhan dynasty. In this, we will have a discussion over the background and the rise and the political history. Thereafter, we will see the cultural and the religious patronage. Then, decline and legacy. Then, Chalukya dynasty. In Chalukya dynasty, we will discuss the background and rise, political history, cultural and architecture achievements, decline and legacy. And thereafter, we will have a discussion over the Pallava dynasty, in which we will discuss the background and rise, political history, cultural and architecture achievements, and the decline and legacy. So these all are the topics that we are going to discuss in brief in this lecture. Before starting of this lecture, there is a small disclaimer over here. Like, the images used in a slide deck are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and the owners of these images. If you are the owner of any of the images used in this deck and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathi@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the images. Okay. So now, first let us delve into the social and cultural life of the Gupta Empire. So if we talk about the social structure, so the Guptas also continued the same that we had during the Vedic period. That is known as the Varna system. Okay. Like the Gupta society was structured around the Varna system, and this was consisting of the four main social classes. The Brahmins, who were generally the priests and the scholars, Kshatriyas, who were generally the warriors and the rulers, Vaishyas, who were generally the merchants and farmers, Shudras, who were generally the artisans and laborers. Okay. Thereafter, we had the social mobility. Like, while the one system provided a framework, okay, of the societal division, social mobility was possible through education, wealth accumulation, achievement of personal merit and all. Okay. Apart from this, if we talk about the role of women in the Gupta society, then we can say women in the Gupta society played a significant role within their families as well as the communities they belong to. Okay. Like if we talk about education, some women were from elephant families. It means the rich families, they received the education in various fields, including the field of arts, literature, religious scriptures, and all. Even if we talk about the legal status, so the legal texts like the Manusmriti, because in the previous lecture, if you remember, we have revised, the Guptas focused mainly on the judicial system and the administrative system in the part of revenue. In judicial system, basically they drive their judiciary from the various legal Hindu texts, and Manusmriti was once amongst them. So these texts prescribe the guidelines for the woman's role and rights, and also emphasizes their duties as wives and mothers. Okay. Thereafter, if we talk about the family life during the Gupta and the post-Gupta period, mainly the Gupta period right now. So they have the concept of joint families. Okay. It means the Gupta society often practice the joint family where extended family members they live together and share their resources. Okay. Live together and share their resources. Thereafter, the marriage and the rituals. So, during the Gupta, the marriage was considered as a sacred bond, or you can say the Pavitra Bandhan in Hindi. Rituals and ceremonies were there that played a crucial role in the family and the social life. Okay. Inheritance, if we talk about this, inheritance laws governs the property rights, typically passing through a male descendants to their male counterparts. Although women was also allowed to inherit some property, but not in a general sense, only allowed to hold the property in some specific circumstances. Got it? After this, if we want go to the religion and philosophy of the Gupta Empire, so basically we know when the Mauryan period was here, like we discussed in the previous lecture, here we just revising it again in a quicker way. During the Mauryan period, basically the Jainism and the Buddhism got an edge over the Hinduism, right? These two religions flourished. Then we know Vishwamitra Shung, who was the commander-in-chief of the last Mauryan ruler, Brihadratha. Okay, he killed him and he ascended the throne. And that's how the Mauryan Empire got ended and the Shung dynasty or the Shung Empire got into the picture. So we know basically the Shungs were mainly the patronage of Hinduism, but even they had the way for the Buddhism and Jainism also. It means that by themselves they only promoting the Hinduism, but they also giving the ages to the Buddhism and Jainism. After the you can say Shung dynasty, the Kanva dynasty was there, right? Kanva dynasty were also the follower of the Hinduism. They also continued with the Hinduism. Then Satavahan dynasty that destroyed the Kanva dynasty. Okay, that Satavahan dynasty was mainly you can say following the Hinduism or supporting the Hinduism. All right. But apart from Hinduism, they also had a way for the Buddhism and Jainism in their respective areas. Okay. But when Shri Gupta laid down the foundation of Gupta Empire in the area of Magad. Okay. And then we know the Ghatotkacha expanded the empire into the westwards and Chandragupta first came in the picture. Then Samudragupta, who took the empire lines up to the southern India as well. Then we know the Vikramaditya II and all. All these rulers were expanded the empire, and because the Gupta empire was also based on Hinduism, so that's how the Hinduism again revived. Okay, but the Guptas were also having the policy of religious tolerance. Okay, it means that if the royal household, like the king household, is a follower of Hinduism, that doesn't mean that they will impose the Hinduism as a state religion. Okay, so we can say they provided the patronage to the Hinduism, but they also support the Buddhism and Jainism. But why we are talking about this, that will become clear over here. Like we can say, the Hinduism was basically under the various kind of restrictions during the Ashoka rule. However, the Ashok was secular and liberal, but the Ashok had one policy, that was a policy of prohibition on useless rituals and too many rituals and sacrifices. Okay, so oftenly in Hinduism, many such sacrifices and the rituals are presented that the one could do because of the divine origin and all. All these or many of these sacrifices got prohibited during the Ashokan time. Okay, but when the Guptas were there, all these sacrifices and all these rituals got again revived in a proper sense. Okay, and because of this long range of dynasty and finally a powerful royal patronage that was given from the Gupta dynasty, the dominant religion during that time was Hinduism. Okay, so the Gupta India saw a resurgence of Hinduism as the predominant religion. Okay, it means that the final revival of Hinduism took in place from the Gupta's time onward, with worship centers that were around the deities or the gods like the Vishnu, Shiva, Devi, and others. Okay, majority of Hindu gods, their rituals got revived and their worship got revived during the Gupta Empire. Thereafter, if we talk about the religious sects, so basically during this time, though Hinduism also taken a look at the religious sects, like first was the Vaishnavism and the Shaivism. That was one of the major religious sects that was originated during the Gupta time and even lasted today. Okay, and what is the key difference between these two? Now here you can say there is a portrait of two Hindu deities. One is Lord Vishnu, second is Lord Shiva. Okay, so Vaishnavism is basically when you devotion to the Vishnu or when you devoted yourself to the Vishnu. Shaivism, on the other hand, is a devotion to Shiv. Okay, so basically the followers of Vaishnavism, they prefer worshipping Vishnu over others, whereas the followers of Shaivism, they prefer worship Shiv over others. Okay, both the worship done for the one common aim, that is gain prominence and influencing the religious practices and the temple architecture. Okay, like in Vaishnavism, the temple architecture is according to the devotion to Vishnu, whereas in Shaivism, the temple architecture is in accordance to devoted to the Lord Shiva. Okay, so that sect was basically evolved during this time. With this sect, there was you can say another thing that evolved during that time, and that thing was evolution of untouchability. Like we know, in India there is an Article 70 that abolished the untouchability. It means that if someone from lower caste or denotified tribe and all, then we could not declare that person untouchable. We could not restrict him to enter into the public places using the public facilities and all. So that concept of untouchables was basically originated during the Gupta's time. Okay, in order to revive the Hinduism and the traditional Hindu practices, the Gupta Empire also paved the way for some radicalization during the Hindu sometime. Okay. So because of this, some practices like the untouchability came into vogue. Alright. So remember this. Thereafter, the Bhakti movement. Okay. So Bhakti movement in its early forms of the Bhakti movement began during this period. Okay. And that form emphasizing personal devotion to the deity or the god as a mean of spiritual liberation. It means that during the first time when the Bhakti movement came into the picture, instead of targeting the entire group of people or society, they were promoting that the one person or one individual should devote himself to a god completely. Instead of going through the price, instead of going through the rituals and sacrifices, the one should devoting himself to the god, and ultimately the god will pave a way for his spiritual liberation. It means there is no need of performing that much of things and all. Got it? Now, let's move forward. Thereafter, what we have the contribution to the Indian philosophy. Like, what was the contribution of Gupta Empire to the Indian philosophy? So in the previous lecture, basically we talk about this is known as the golden age of the Indian history, right? Like if we talk about the schools of thoughts, so during the Gupta India contributed significantly to Indian philosophy through the development of various schools of thought, okay, like Nyaya and Vaisheshika, that was logical and metaphysical schools, okay, that made advancement in the fields of epistemology and ontology. Okay. Thereafter, the Vedanta. The Gupta period saw the rise of Vedanta philosophy, exploring the teachings of Upanishad and emphasizing the concept of Brahman. That was the universal consciousness. It means that they gone beyond the concept of Vedas. Thereafter, the Buddhist and Jain thought. While Hinduism dominated, Buddhism and Jainism continued to flourish, contributing to religious pluralism and philosophical discourse. Okay. Thereafter, in the field of literature and learning, if we talk about, first is the Sanskrit literature. Golden Age. The Gupta period is renowned as a golden age of Sanskrit literature, marked by prolific literary output and poetic excellence. Thereafter, Kalidas. Kalidas was the foremost playwright and poet of ancient India, who wrote various masterpieces. Famous ones are like the Shakuntala, okay, and like the Meghdut during this time period. Other works that composed during this time we talk about Aryabhat's astronomical treatise, works on grammar by Panini and Patanjali, medical texts like Charak Samhita that reflect the diversity and depth of Gupta era scholarship. So we can say various scholars basically presented during the Gupta era, and these scholars brought a very, very famous text and the treatise on various things that contributed to the Indian religion, philosophy, and the knowledge as well. Okay. Then educational institutions that were presented there if we talk about. First one was Nalanda and Takshila. So Gupta India was home to renowned centers of learning like the Nalanda and the Takshila, which attracted scholars from across the subcontinent and beyond. Okay. Thereafter, curriculum. These institutions offered the comprehensive educations in the subjects that were ranging from the subjects of philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and even went up to the languages and literature. Thereafter, the Gurukul system was there. Like, the education was often imparted through the traditional Gurukul system. Like we know in India, in the ancient time and the previous time, there was a Gurukul system. There were no schools, but the home and the residing place of the teacher became a place where the students went and learned various things about various knowledge and all. Okay. So the students generally lived with a guru or a teacher and they received the holistic education over the various fields and all. Okay. Remember this thing. Thereafter, if we talk about the architectural achievements, first is the rock cut caves. Like here you can see. In the previous lecture also I have told you the two type of temple structures that were existed there were, first one was rock cut, second one was structure. In the rock cut caves, basically here you can say there was a huge slope of stone that existed there. Within this slope, they cut it down the stone, made a room, and that's how they made the various kind of structure. Alright. So that were famously known as the rock cut caves that were introduced during the Gupta time. Famous ones are Udagiri and Kandagiri caves. If we talk about these, then these both were located near Bhubaneswar in Odisha. These caves represent the early Gupta rock cut architecture. Thereafter, the features. The caves feature intricately carved sculptures of various deities, animals, and scenes from the Hindu mythology. Purpose of these? So these were used as in residential cells where the Jain monks used to live. And these caves also served as a places of worship and meditation for them. So here we can say, however, the Gupta were mainly emphasized on the revival of Hinduism, but they had the policy of religious tolerance as well. Okay. So we can say they even respected the other religions that were existed during their time. Example are Jain. Thereafter, the second type that was presented there was the structural temples, like you can see here. Okay. There was no previous stone and the stone slope, and the entire temple was constructed with the help of rocks and all. So the famous examples are the Dash Avatar temple that was at Devgarh. It is located modern day Madhya Pradesh. This is simple example of good structure and the temple architecture. If we talk about architecture, so basically it is built in Panchayatana style. It means 5 shrines around a central shrine. Like this is the central shrine, and thereafter there are the 5 other shrines. Showcases the elaborate carvings and sculpture that was presented there, but with the passage of time, that temple is not in the original form, like it was used to be. Sculptured styles. The sculptures depicts the various forms of Vishnu, including his avatar, like the Dashavatar, along with scenes that were collected from the Hindu epics and the mythological tales. Thereafter, the sculpture and the iconography. Gupta art style. Characteristics. Gupta art is characterized by its naturalism, grace, and idealized forms. Thereafter, sculpture representation. Sculptures often depict gods and goddess, celestial beings, mythological creatures, and the scenes that were collected from various religious texts. Material and techniques. Sculptures were primarily made of stone, with artists employing techniques such as high grief and the polished surfaces so that the visual appeal could be enhanced. Thereafter, iconography of Hindu deities. First is Vishnu, often depicted with forearms holding the symbolic objects like the conch, shankh, discus, chakra, mace, gada, lotus, the padam. Thereafter, the shape. He was represented in various forms such as Nataraj, Lord of Dance. Thereafter, Ardhanarishwara, half man and half woman. Thereafter, Ling, the symbol of divine energy. Thereafter, Devi or goddess. Manifestations like Durga, she was a warrior goddess, Lakshmi, goddess of wealth, Saraswati, goddess of knowledge. These all are depicted with their respective attributes and the symbols. Thereafter, iconography of Buddhist deities. First one was Lord Buddha. He represented in different mudras, hand gestures symbolizing the teachings and the aspects of the enlightenment. Thereafter, the Bodhisattva, divine beings who assist in attaining the enlightenment, depicted with the unique attributes and the compensate expressions. Thereafter, if we talk about the cultural significance, first one was the religious patronage. Gupta rulers patronized both Hindu and the Buddhist art and the architecture, contributing to the cultural and religious landscape of India. Legacy. Gupta art and architecture set standards for the subsequent dynasty, influencing styles techniques across the South Asia. If we talk about the artistic flourishing, Gupta period celebrated as a golden age of Indian art that we had already discussed, marked by the creativity, technical mastery, and the spiritual depth reflected in the sculpture and architectural masterpieces. If we talk about the causes of decline of the empire, first one is the Hun invasions, White Huns. Gupta Empire faced invasions from the White Huns in the 5th century CE, who posed a significant military threat. These invasions disrupted the trade routes, the agricultural productivity, and caused the widespread destruction in the northern India, and that weakened the Gupta authority. Internal conflicts like the succession issues, periodic disputes over succession and competition among Gupta princes weakened the central authority. Regional revolts, local governors and rulers asserted the independence from the Gupta, leading to the fragmentation of Gupta territories and the loss of centralized control. Economic challenges. Depletion of resources, continuous warfare, invasions, depleted the imperial resources, affecting agricultural productivity, trade, and then the revenue decline. Okay? That was it. Reduced the empire's stability to sustain the large army and the other things. Okay? Thereafter, if we move forward, then the influence on the subsequent dynasty like the regional states, Gupta culture and political norms continued to influence the regional states even after the decline. Thereafter, the Chalukyas and Pallavas, these dynasties were adopted the Gupta administrative practices and patronized the Gupta style art and architecture. Legacy we had already discussed, like the literature and arts, they had the Kalidas plays, Aryabhatta astronomical treaties and all. Architecture, they had the Shabda temple, rock cut caves and all. Educations, for this, they had built the Nalanda and Takshila, this kind of institutions, for the fields like the philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and the medicine. Thereafter, we talk about Indian numerals and zero, place value system. The Gupta mathematicians developed the decimal place value system with digits 0 to 9 to represent the numbers based on their position. Concept of zero was developed there by the Aryabhatta and all that could be used to solve the complex situations. Aryabhatta first, he was the mathematician astronomer of the Gupta period. He wrote the Aryabhattiya, the foundational text in the Indian mathematics. Aryabhatta works including the advancement in the arithmetic, algebra, trigonometry, and astronomy. In trigonometry, Aryabhatta introduced the trigonometric functions such as sine jaya, cosine cojaya, cosine utkarma jaya, and provided the accurate sine tables. Brahmagupta, if we talk about, he was another prominent mathematician of the post-Gupta period who made the significant contribution to the algebra. Brahmagupta's works involved the solving quadratic equations, intermediate equations, laying the groundwork for the algebraic techniques. Negative numbers, he also discussed the rules for dealing with the negative numbers, which was a pioneering concept in mathematics in the later stage. Bodhayan, an earlier mathematician, provided rules for constructing the various geometric shapes and calculating their areas. During the Gupta, mathematicians made the advancement in the geometric principles, including the methods for measuring land, calculating volumes, determining the astronomical distances and all. If we talk about the astronomical models, like Aryabhatta proposed mathematical models for planetary motion and calculation of eclipses. Astronomical constant, he accurately estimated the astronomical constant such as the length of the solar year. That was improving on earlier Greek and Babylonian models to further rise. Hereafter, we talk about the Harshvardhan dynasty. So that dynasty was founded by the Harshvardhan during the post-Gupta period, who was the ruler of Thanishwar. Later, he expanded the kingdom to the Kannauj that was in present Uttar Pradesh. He belonged to the Pushybhuti dynasty, which having its origin in Punjab. Harsh concentrated his power over the northern India through the military contest and the alliances. He eventually became one of the most powerful rulers of his time. He launched a successful military campaign so that he could expand the empire and annexing the territories from the neighbor kingdoms and the rival rulers. He formed strategic alliances also through the matrimonial ties like the Chandragupta first, and he fostering the political stability within his empire. He also employed the centralized system with efficient governance, including the provisional governors who were named as the viceroy to oversee the local governance. Patron of Buddhism. Initially, he was a follower of Shaivism, later converted to Buddhism and became a great patron of Buddhist monasteries and institutions. Nalanda University was basically patronized again during his time, renowned center of learning during the ancient India that dynasty was. Harsh dynasty weakened after the death of Harsh, and basically Chalukyas of Badami extended the empire during this time. That was also a great patronage for Buddhism, Sanskrit literature, scholarly pursuits and all. After this, now we have the Chalukya dynasty. That was founded by Pulasikhin first, who established the Chalukya dynasty in the Badami, that is in present-day Karnataka. Initially, he ruled over the parts of present-day Karnataka and Maharashtra, later expanded to the parts of central and southern India. If we talk about the military powers, the Chalukyas were known for their military strength and the strategic alliances, enabling them to conquer the neighboring territories and assert their regional dominance. They implemented a decentralized administrative system, like delegate the authority to the regional governors, but they still maintain the central control over the key policies and the decision. They advocated the Dravidian architecture in their buildings and all, led with intricate carvings, structural temples, and the monolithic sculpture. Examples of this are the Virushpaksha temple in Pathadakal and the rock cut temples of Badami. These exemplify their architectural prowess and their artistic expression. If we talk about the decline, like succession disputes and the internal conflicts weakened the Chalukya dynasty in the late 8th century. Chalukyas left a lasting legacy in South India architecture and sculpture. The contribution influenced the subsequent dynasties like the Rashtrakutas and the Hoysalas to shape the cultural and the religious landscape of Karnataka and beyond. If we talk about the Pallava dynasty, it was founded by Shima Vishnu, who established the Pallava dynasty in Kanchipuram in present-day Tamil Nadu. Initial territory was of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Later, they extended their influence to the Southeast Asia also. They had the naval supremacy. It means the Pallavas were renowned for their maritime process and controlled the wider trade routes in the Indian Ocean like this. Here was their empire. They engaged in conflicts with the neighbor dynasties like the Chalukyas and Cholas so that they could maintain their control in these areas. If we talk about the monumental architecture, they were well known for their rock cut temples, monolithic sculptures, structured temples in the Dravidian architectural style. Examples of this are Mahabalipuram, Mamallapuram, showcases the Pallavan rock cut temples and monolithic sculptures, including the famous Show temple and the five Rath of Mahabalipuram. If we talk about the decline, internal conflicts and the external invasions, particularly by the Cholas, led to the decline of Pallava dynasty by 9th century CE. Legacy, the Pallavas made the significant contribution to South Indian art, architecture and literature. Their architectural style influenced later dynasties like the Cholas and the Vijayanagar Empire, leaving a lasting impact on Tamil Nadu's cultural heritage. So students, here in this lecture, we have finished the post-Gupta and the Gupta period part 2 also. In next lecture, we will start with another important topic. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.